not because it has interests of the people at heart, but because it is determined to advance an agenda that prioritizes privilege over progress. It is disingenuous for anyone to project themselves as poor in terms of their disposition, when in fact they are not. The DA's demands expose their true intentions. They want labor laws to be scrapped so that employers can fire workers at will. They want black economic empowerment policies to be abandoned. They want to weaken institutions that have been established to reverse economic exclusion. These are the same policies that entrenched inequality and racial capitalism in the past, and the ANC will never allow such regression. Their opposition to the VAT increase is not about protecting the poor. It is about ensuring that economic policies serve corporate interests at the expense of working-class South Africans. In their desperation, they seek to create an Israeli Gaza-type situation using the Western Cape as their political salvo, a scenario in which African and colored people of the province will be treated as subhuman in the land of their birth. This is the reason behind their insistence on Cape Town's port being considered, an attempt to carve out an economic enclave where the interests of the privileged are protected at the expense of the majority. They further demanded changes to labor laws that will allow employers to fire workers at will without due process or legal recourse, effectively returning the country to the draconian conditions that allowed apartheid to thrive on the exploitation of black workers. We remain firm in our resolve to build an inclusive and prosperous economy that works for all South Africans. This budget proposal provides a framework for investment, industrialization, and economic transformation, ensuring that South Africa's wealth is shared among its people. We will continue to work tirelessly to advance the principles of the Freedom Charter, ensuring that the economy serves all, not just privileged minority. The people of South Africa can see through every deception. The ANC stands firm in delivering a better life for all, driving growth, expanding opportunities, and ensuring that economic justice becomes a reality for all South Africans. The ANC remains the only political formation genuinely committed to transformation, economic justice, and the full realization of the aspirations of the majority. The budget proposal is a step forward. With the continued support of the people, will ensure that it translates into tangible progress. It is a budget constructed within the paradigm of economic difficulties that we are facing, which seeks to drive a balancing act for all in order for us to recover going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade SG. I will at this point take questions from yourselves, colleagues. I'll start this side, SABC, followed by News 24. Is your hand up, SABC? Now or previously? So we have, both iNews and News 24. And then in this round, I've got a number of hands, so I will just take a newsroom and stop it at that, just in case we have too many questions from one individual, which happens often. So I will leave it at that, and then we'll have the second round. SABC?
Mr. Mbalula, how are you expecting to pass this particular budget when it has been rejected by the MK Party, the EFF, and the Democratic Alliance, who are the major political formations in the National Assembly, how would you effectively pass it when all of them have rejected the proposal by the Minister of Finance to increase VAT by 0.5% in the next 2 financial years? Then lastly, on the issue of the negotiations on the political parties you've approached, what is the nature of the discussions with the economic freedom fighters in order to have them to help you pass through this particular budget in time for its implementation within the country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move this side. Tabiso.
Tabiso Goba from Eyewitness News. Mr. Mbalula, I think I'll just follow up on what my colleague has asked. Has the ANC approached any parties outside the GNU to help it pass the budget? And maybe if you can share who those parties are. And two, you spoke about why the finance minister didn't tax the wealthy or increase the corporate tax. He said it was answered, but I don't think we got an answer in terms of why was that not considered by the finance minister in terms of introducing some wealthy tax or even increasing the corporate tax. Thank you.
Thank you. News 24.
I'm going to talk on News 24. I think so in addition, Mr. Mbalula, there are some proposals coming from within Parliament with regards to changes to be made to the budget. I mean, it's not set in stone. Is the ANC willing to engage on any of these proposals, including cutting down on the cabinet, doing away with some of the VIP protection? Is the ANC willing to consider any of these proposals, and to what extent? And are you going to, can you expect that you will be leaning to the IP perhaps, the PA and the UDM to pass this budget? Or can you just bring us into confidence in terms of Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Junior Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. Mr. Mbalula, where does this then leave the relationship between the ANC and the DA and the other parties within the GNU? Because you've been very vocal about the motivations behind the DA not wanting to have an increase in the VAT, but also the ANC heading into this budget speech was very adamant that you do not want any VAT increase. What's the sense around this 0.5 percentage point this year and next year? Or is the ANC in support of this? Do you still hope that you don't see an increase, especially next year? Because we had the finance minister saying that the increase next year is optional depending on the economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I may take further questions. Ms. G.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Business Day. And then I will come back to you. There was a hand there. Is it a Business Day Insight Factor, SABC? And back to yourself then, Pavelo. Thank you. And then I'll end with Lunga. In that order, colleagues. Business Day.
Hello, SG. My name is Tanya Maeko from the Business Day. Just how do you think the increase in that, the 0.5 percentage point increase in that, will affect the ANC's chances in the 2026 elections, considering that that is a regressive tax and will affect the poorest of the poorest more than it will the wealthy? And then can you let us in if you as yourself as a secretariat were involved in any of the negotiations in this 3-week period between 19th of February and March 12th to negotiate the budget at all, and what was the context of this negotiation?
Thank you, Business Day. Moving on.
Yeah, thank you, Somlo. SG, intrinsic my name from Welena News. SG, the DA is being alleged that the budget must talk to the poor. They sounded pro-poor. Second one, when the GNU was structured, during negotiations, aren't you, as all the parties that are in GNU, in the same page? Or is it that time to time you engage we are not going to agree in everything that have to be done with the executive. We will always, time to time, negotiate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ntebo?
Okay, my name is Ntebo. I'm with the SABC. Two of my questions have been partly asked by colleagues, but it will be a bit of reiteration as opposed to a repeat. Secretary General, when the abortive presentation of the budget happened on the 19th of February, you said immediately after that abortive meeting, you said that the ANC didn't support the 2% hike of the VAT, but the ANC deployee in the form of Minister of Finance went to present their budget. Where is the center? Is the center ANC or is the center the Union Buildings? Because the ANC deployee went to present the budget as opposed to the ANC giving an approval or a go ahead of that. And maybe secondly, with all the ills that we said about the GA, where does that leave the relationship between the GA? And thirdly, maybe I would assume that the budget is something that is sponsored by the ANC alliance. The SACP, which happens to be, because it's the vanguard when thinking class, seems to be opposed to the 0.5% increase. Have you discussed with your alliance partners in terms of the form and the shape that the budget would take, or you just went ahead as the ANC and give your ANC deployee minister the money to present the budget?
Thank you. I'm Hawala Mawalewa from UFM. SG, please indicate if I'm wrong. My sense is that everyone is rejecting this budget. You, at the very least, have the EFF saying, well, we can negotiate with them about priorities and so on. I saw Rise Mzansi waffling something along those lines, but generally in the GNU it's being rejected, which sends a message that the center is not holding, that the ANC is living hand to mouth. You are not in control. You can rebut that if you want. And an unrelated matter, there was a by-election in KZN where the MK took a ward of the ANC. There's another one coming here in inner city Johannesburg. Just your reflection on those by-elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
When we win, you never ask.
Absolutely. Lunga?
Well, thank you very much, SG. SG, maybe you can educate me, I don't know. SG, if the budget doesn't pass, what does it mean for government? Does it mean that this is a total collapse of government? What's going to happen, basically? What does it mean? I don't know. So I'm saying maybe you can help me, educate me there. Secondly, I'm from the city of Johannesburg, SG, and it looks like also there are issues there between the ANC and Action SA, which also they are not supporting a budget, an adjustment budget in the municipality as well. If you look at the trend of the DA not supporting you, and also Action SA also not supporting you, but these are people that you are in coalition with, don't you think maybe it is time that you review your coalition partners? For instance, the EFF has said, look, we would like to work with them, but on certain grounds. Don't you think maybe in overall, you need to relook at working with the DA? Thank you, SG.
Thank you. I think we are done with the number of questions that colleagues have posed. SG?
Thank you very much. The first question, how do we pass the budget when opposition is against? What we have read is that everybody is verbosing 0.5% increase in the budget, but not looking holistically in terms of what the budget presents to the country. the fact that budget had to be delayed for some time in order to readjust and have a suitable balance, that shows that the executive have applied its mind, and that's what really is important to us. The budget will be passed working with everybody in government, and the ANC is prepared to talk and engage with all other political parties within the government of national unity and even beyond. And we have always been and will always be open to talking to everybody. But talking to everybody does not mean that we are submissive. We look at the facts in terms of what people put on the table, and then we engage. Talking past each other in the media is not engagement. Let's deal with the facts of what people are talking about, including the alternatives of what they want. We have looked at what the DA talks about, which overall to us is blocking transformation. We have equally looked into the question of the budget itself in terms of the balance and what needed to be done other than VAT. For a moment, if we have to pause, we know that the DA would have accepted 0.5% increase if we backtracked on transformation legislation like Bella Act, Expropriation Act, NHI. And in this particular instance, we don't think that those are policy matters that you must use the budget to basically block transformation. And that's what is important. Two, if you talk about the fact that the 0% increase of the VAT affect the poor, in our manifesto, even now, we know that this does not apply to basic essentials for the poor, like bread, fruits, milk, eggs, and maize. And you can call it mohodu, that is your own thing. You know, if we have to come, we've got to build infrastructure of highways, good infrastructure around the country. But at the same time, we do not have the financial resources to do that. And then we'll introduce e-tolls, probably without broader engagement, and people boycott e-tolls. But even people who are not affected, those who are basically working class, like using taxis, buses, and all of that, are actually part and parcel of the general strike against the e-tolls. But those who can afford, at the end of the day, their voices become voluminous to the point where in which even the poor and the working class are actually mobilized and believe that the e-tolls affect them negatively, when in the bigger scheme of things they did not. And we have passed on that. Now, we are very clear that it is important to engage. 2% was high. Government have actually set 0.5 increase over a period of time, and this, depending on the response of the economy, will obviously over time diminish, and that's what it's important. Now, we are ready to engage with everybody if they have alternatives. On the corporate tax, which is high, it is very clear that if you were to increase, you are basically take people out of jobs over a period of time. And what is important about this budget in balancing the act is fundamentally about preserving and creating jobs and making it a point that the economy grows without compromising spending on social transformation and basic needs. So we need more teachers. We need to ensure that as much as we need more teachers, we need more healthcare workers, infrastructure, and so on. We expand on the SRD with a view that over time this will be changed into basic income grant. So if we're to do away with all of those, what will actually happen to the country's agenda of transformation? It will obviously regress. And we're prepared to talk to everybody. That includes the SACP as the ANC on our stance of supporting the budget. We think that the minister and cabinet have come up with a balancing act to ensure that we have a budget for the country, and we are ready to talk to anyone in the framework of the GNU and beyond. Are we EWN? Are we talking to other political parties? That has not been scaled up. We've been talking to the DA in the framework of government and leaders of political parties talking. That door is not closed, but we are very clear that 0.5% has not been an easy decision, but at the end of the day, something that we can work with going forward to recover. Why not taxing the wealthy? That has been addressed. That is happening already. News 24, are we willing to consider other proposals? I mean, budget had to be postponed for 2 weeks or so, or 3 weeks, to consider all the proposals. So all has been done to consider everything on the table. That has been proposed by political parties and everybody. The minister engaged with the DA, engaged with the workers, engaged with us, as well as the ANC. I don't know about other political parties and our tripartite alliance and so on. So I can't speak for the SACP and their stance. But we're having a bilateral this coming Monday. So we are ready also to engage with our allies on these matters. I've heard some of the proposals we've had, like cutting cabinet. The question is, will that address the question of the middle gap in terms of what we want to achieve and what we are facing as a country as we pass this particular budget? It is very easy for anyone to say cut cabinet and all of that, which is fine. But we have been cutting, even in the austerity budgets that have been implemented. This cutting have been going on. I mean, the cutting will not be new, except that in the GNU we have seen the increase of cabinet, which the intended goal was to decrease the numbers of cabinet members. I was in government. Ministers have been affected by this cut. Blue lights is not money, it's cars. Blue light is just a traffic control measure, and it must not be abused. In government, when I left, government had cut on the expenditure of cars. Ministers used to drive cars in the range of 1 million. It was cut to 500,000, and so on. Packs like credit cards were taken away probably 15 years ago, and they are not there. Flying arrangement, ministers are flying economy. That was cut as well from flying business locally, domestically. You only fly business international. There were cuts from first class to business. Also, if you fly for 10 hours. Your supporting staff, in terms of numbers of international trips, where you find that departmental staff were flying up and down to different meetings, that was cut. Ministers only approve the most important trips internationally. In terms of household, ministers were not paying. Now, if you own 2 properties, Pretoria and Cape Town, you pay part of where you stay. So these packs people are making noise about, ministers are on a gravy train and all of that, that's not the case. I was there, I saw it myself, and I was traveling economy when I was Minister of Transport. I didn't have a credit card. And the house I was staying in Cape Town was paid for. I didn't have a house in Pretoria. I was staying in my own property in Johannesburg. So this thing of gravy train, the car I was driving was less than $1 million in government that I was driving. Probably the R1 million car that I'm driving is in the ANC. That's where the gravy train is. But when I was minister in government, I didn't, except when I was Minister of Police. And equally, that was the police budget. But most ministers, they had to negotiate backwards because safety for people driving long distances and all of that with these government cars, doing government work, all those considerations. From the days of the late Tito Mboweni, when he was wearing those shoes, people did not understand. What do those shoes communicate? They were communicating one thing, that we're in a difficult period economically, and our expenditure in terms of government, particularly on things like those, we must not want to live, in a particular state, whereas we're saying everybody must sacrifice. Now, we go into this VAT increase, which we will not be having it at all, and we must work very hard to get out of this particular situation over a period of time. But if certain things are not done, we will not be in a position to fund the basic needs of our people. And that's where we differ fundamentally with the DA. And that's where we say to the DA that this pro-poor verbosity they are accentuating is far from the truth. We know what they stand for and what they want in terms of the budget. And they've raised those things in our discussions, formal and informal. And we have engaged back and forth on these particular matters. But we're still open to engagement with the DA. Newsroom, I don't know whether I've covered you. You're talking about where does it put us with GNU. Look, GNU is GNU. I mean, we're committed to the GNU, Government of National Unity. The fact that there are differences around the question of the budget, it's important that we must find each other and actually continue to engage. We have not closed the door. So as the ANC, as a party, we are ready to engage with everybody on these particular matters. So we are quite keen to engage with everybody. ANC, in terms of the SAPC, you are saying that we were firm on the question of no VAT increase of 2%. We raised that particular matter, and it was reviewed to 0.5%. And that's what has actually happened here. And it's a position that we have understood that is not cast in stone, and it will change over a period of time, given the difficulties that we are facing. SACP, I've answered that question. By-elections, well, it's by-elections. It's Richmond. We win some, we lose some. MK party have won that particular one, but we also, our numbers have also increased, but we have not lost the municipality. So we're still in charge. So we will continue to work very hard and look at this situation and analyze correctly what actually happened. There's a lot of positive energy coming out of KwaZulu-Natal, and that is quite encouraging. Lunga, if the budget doesn't pass, what does it mean? We hope we don't reach that. It means we would have defied everything, including national interest. Budget must be passed. Government must pass the budget to service the people. If it doesn't, then it will be a big crisis for South Africa and for our country. I don't think we'll even reach that stage. Working with everybody, you don't review working with people because you differ. Everyone came here on his own accord. And if they feel this does not work for them, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But government must continue to work and work together going forward. What you see here in terms of this budget, it's people who say VAT must not be touched. It touches on the poor, but we have mitigated the VAT situation in reality to address the interest of the poor, particularly cost of living for the poor, and with zero-rated essentials. There are those who say, we don't want VAT, but they say don't increase any tax at all. That is a conservative posture of the Democratic Alliance and all those who agree with them. They don't just say VAT, they say everything across. We are balancing the act in relation to VAT, which corporate tax have already been increased to limits that will be unacceptable and can actually bring us to a cul-de-sac of a job bloodbath in this country. Income tax and all of those things have been considered by the Treasury in terms of the briefing that we got. And so those who say cut on spending, we have also gone further and said we agree on spending review, which the president was already looking at in the past and together with Treasury and all of that. So what other political parties, in particular the DA wants, they want to, but they can participate in that, which we agree. All other matters are policy options. Were negotiated and were passed in Parliament. And if constitutionally these policy options have been signed and they are an act and all of that, the fact of the matter is that they can only be overturned if ever the Constitutional Court says so, or any other court in this particular instance. They've gone through all the processes. The DA and whoever is opposed to this, NHI, Bella, and all of that, they were defeated in that process. We have gone through the process of extending for some time to find a way of understanding what is the sticky point of difference. And we could not come to that, and this had to be signed. Now, to want to use the budget to say you must not move in this direction. If you move, we won't support. And matters that are policy in nature that have been passed by the Parliament of South Africa, I think is disingenuous in a way. So issues can be looked at, including the budget, But there are fundamental things that will not make us move as the party, as the ANC, that will not support. We will not support that cut spending on, for instance, employment of teachers, SRD, and all of those, and so on. Yes, VAT, but cushion the poor in that process. That's what we are for as the African National Congress, and that is the basis of us supporting this budget. I hope I've answered everything.
No, just the impact of these consecutive VAT increases on the ANC's financial prospects in 2026.
We have a budget before us that have relieved people, in particular, eating direct in their pockets, like fuel levy, that is addressed loud and clear in the budget, and then 0.5% increase, mitigate the cost of living by zero rating and expanding the bucket of zero rated essentials, which affect the poor. Our prospects will increase if the economy performs and people work. And you must also look at things broadly speaking, that the cost of electricity in South Africa, if you were to talk about corporate tax and all of that, those big companies which employ millions of our people, how are they actually going to be affected, which already by now, as it is explained by Treasury, the tax imposition on them is already high. So the question is not taxing the poor. As much as you come with VAT, if, for instance, I go and buy ice cream, it's because I can afford. It's a luxury to eat an ice cream, Magnum or whatever, I'm sorry to mention. But it means I can afford. If I buy a car and all of that, it means to a certain extent I can afford and all of that. But we say zero rated essentials that we know, for instance, people need bread. If bread was to cost 1,000, it will affect our people directly. So this situation must and will improve over time. And we will not be here as we project going forward. So difficult as some of these decisions are, but they have to be taken to enable us to move forward. Now, the fact that there's a point of difference among us and political parties is most welcome, but let's engage with everyone. I've seen many people in Parliament. You insult people's input by saying that they were waffling. I don't think that is. You engage with every input, and you can only make a determination that a political party is waffling if you challenge directly what they've actually been saying. Even DA, they still believe in the interest of the constituency they represent. They are right. And then why do they want us to move back? When, as much as we have not won the election, people who voted for us. And those people did not vote for us to do away with labor laws and review them. They did not vote for us to say that close down the workers and all of that. They didn't. They wanted us to protect. And here is the economy not performing. What do we do? And we've got now a budget that is balancing everything, that is able to take us forward and taking the interest of everybody. You see, you need everyone and all hands on deck to enable us to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, SG. I am going to indulge you. Newsroom.
Just two quick questions, SG. On the Joburg Council, basically the president introducing that presidential, the council not have just been disbanded or dissolved and placed under administration. And the second one, in the Northwest, the Human Rights Commission is holding a public engagement on the spoiler transport and the quality of spoiler transport there. But the MEC, the ANC MEC for Education was not there. She wasn't present. She went to the start of the Winter Games. This was something that was communicated in advance. Just your thoughts around those two. Thank you.
Well, I don't want to respond without getting the version of the MEC on that matter. Obviously, we'll defend that. There should be cogent reasons why an MEC will not pitch or attend an occasion, an activity like engaging with the Human Rights Commission if she was invited. So if there is negligence and dereliction on the part of the MEC, obviously the ANC must take steps against its employees which project the organization by virtue of occupying those positions in a bad light. So the ANC must be decisive with regard to that. But what we are not going to do is to basically say something when we don't have all the facts on the table. Obviously, now that it is brought to our attention here, we will make follow-up on that particular matter with regard to the Northwest. The President's intervention working group has worked in the eThekwini, where we have deployed Cyril Kaba and the team there to reverse the decay of the city. There were a number of things that were happening in the city from a technical point of view in terms of infrastructure and so on. We see good signs out of the presidential working group deployed there and people with expertise assisting the city in eThekwini. So that model, it works for eThekwini. It can work for Joburg to support what is happening here. But notwithstanding the fact that this is also a coalition government here in Johannesburg. When I sent a tweet on X and I said the state of Johannesburg started to deteriorate from 2016 when we lost the municipality. Everybody was on my case that I'm probably waffling like you are saying about another political party. I was not. I was stating the fact. I mean, the only time where there was stability in this city is when Pakistan was in charge, taking over from Masondo, Braambi, and other mayors. That time, the ANC was in charge. You can blame the ANC that it was in charge. Then came MN Mashaba and Action SA, not Action SA, DA, actually. And then they started to fight within the DA. And then he went to create Action SA. This city was destabilized. And then we went to another election, which we lost. We had to create a coalition and all of that, moving from one coalition to the other. We are now in this where we with other parties and so on. So coalitions have not worked in local government, so to say. They are fraught of, a lot of challenges, coalitions. And that's where we are now with regard to Joburg. So the presidency is prepared to work with Johannesburg to deploy to ensure that we are able to address all the challenges that are facing us in this city. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Secretary General, there's this nude protest by students. Students are now protesting nude for funding over NSFAS. Just your comments around this. Each year we see students around NSFAS. What are we saying now that it's gotten to this point?
I'm going to take the last hands because I had called for hands. So these are afterthoughts. Yourself again, and then yourself, my brother, and then we close. So 3 questions, and then I hand over to the SG.
SG, the opposition parties seem to believe that the minister and in fact the government are not necessarily in control of national treasury. And as you explain yourself there, you sound as if now the ANC is a pressure group that deposits its budget wishes and sit back to wait whether they are being considered by national treasury. Just how much control under the government's control is national treasury? Yeah.
No, treasury is independent. That's why some other people wanted to control treasury and run it. It is independent. We are placing our statement in public because we too constitute political parties in this country, which is the largest. So we have engaged on this matter of the budget, and we're now saying we support the budget that has been presented by the minister yesterday as the African National Congress. So treasury and the budgetary processes follow a different process. You've got MinCompart and their internal processes inside the treasury that are followed. For instance, it is easy to say for us to address a challenge of having withdrawn sponsorship of cigarette, we now want alcohol to be withdrawn to sponsoring sports. It's easy for me and you to make that determination, but Treasury doesn't work like that. They've got to see the feasibility of that, crunch the numbers and check whether or not, if such policy were to happen, focused the expenditure in the country, how is that actually possible? Will it actually help us and all of that? And so that is why we've got a very effective treasury that is respected, not by any means, but because we have positioned treasury in that particular manner as this government right from the onset. So the minister budget to the public, and then we have not most of the time discussed some of the sticky issues around the budget year after year. I mean, if there was no VAT issue, budget would have been presented and we would have made our comments and that will be the end. But because VAT was an issue in terms of this budget, then it became the big debate. And even in the debate, people holistically, some rejected the budget, and then on one aspect of it in terms of VAT. But they don't address, and they are quick to say, if not VAT, go for corporate, go for wealth tax, and then they end there. And then others on the extreme conservative side say cut expenditure on the following, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But do not increase tax in whatever form for anyone. Now, Treasury comes with a 0.5% increase of VAT. They then put conditions to that. But they've never argued before you, as the public, that they want corporate tax to be increased, wealth tax to be increased, and all of that. And then there is a blanket statement that is made that we are taxing the poor. We are taxing the poor, but in the statement presented in the budget, the poor are cushioned in terms of zero-rated essentials, which I've mentioned some here. Now, nobody speaks about that, but there's generalization that, no, you're taxing the poor, and then that is it. So when you get into a room like this, you close the doors, you start to talk, and then you say, but what is the point of difference? What could have actually happened? You then begin to get a sense that it's a bargaining forum where people want to bargain and then and leverage on these particular issues in order to increase their political standing. Probably they suffer from a deficit from their own supporters and all of that. So to increase that, they've got to be seen that we can stop things and so on. But at the end of the day, we need to understand that as much as there is a point of difference, but the most important thing, we need to engage with the substance of issues and then move forward on some of these particular things if we are unable to provide substantive alternatives in terms of what needs to be done.
Good.
And then that was your only question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have my brother over there. Please go ahead.
Thank you, SG. SG, as much as you talk about in the city, about other political parties and the former structures running the municipalities, lately there was allegations of the mayor being sabotaged by using water and electricity by his own comrade. Don't you think men on the street will be saying, those comrades that I'm voting, at the end of the day, they are affecting me. I'm staying in a dark, I'm not able to drink water because of their fighting. And when it comes to them.
No, the issue about government, there's no comrade sabotage here. There are thugs in this country that are syndicates. And those thugs are from state services that are provided. If, for instance, in the township or location where you stay, there is a syndicate that operates there that for all the services that you are going to provide here, we want 30%. It's not community, it's somebody in jail who's notorious. And it is known that that service will not be provided. I was a minister in the trains. They were cutting the, what is this thing? You hear every day on your way, whilst you are in the train, the cable, there is cable theft, there is ESCOM, there are transformers. The issue about extortionists is to create a demand. And then once there is, government will then have to move in and provide the services, but not for free. So they will then, out of that demand, that we must be paid for this thing to happen here where we live. And then there will be some fictitious mobilization of communities around such activities. Whether it is cable theft or whether it is water, destroying the infrastructure in order for the tankers to move in. Because once there are tankers providing water, you know, even in the suburbs and everywhere in the townships where we live, somebody is benefiting out of that. Millions of rands out of that. So it's not a police affair only that police can kill that, but at the same time, it needs broader societal mobilization to deal with such syndicates. They are all over the country. Now, we have seen them here in Johannesburg. We have seen them here in Johannesburg with the water tankers syndicate. We've seen them. Amapungani have extensively. Okay? Thugs are thugs. They don't need to be given a political name. Fact that you can see me with a well-known criminal somewhere, you should ask yourself questions. Why? Why? So if people use their political standing in society to mix with criminals, they must be treated as criminals and they must suffer the same consequences. And the state must intervene harshly and decisively to arrest syndicates and criminals masquerading as businessmen, and then yet at the same time they extort the state. I have seen in my lifetime projects of government stopped that were benefiting in terms of job creation. Big investment were stopped in different communities where people just come and say that, no, on behalf of this community, you are not going to make business here. It is known, these people are known who are running these syndicates. It's not only in Johannesburg, it happens everywhere, especially in and around a number of areas you find these syndicates that are operational. In the construction, roads, construction, you'll find them there. This road won't pass here in our community unless we get something. That's what they will do. Poor community doesn't know anything about benefits they are supposed to get when an individual is raking millions of rands from government contracts through different syndicates and so on. So that's what happens. They are well known. You know them even as the media. These people. Niyabakhomba nje. But be careful, nibakhomba nje, because you will die. That's what they do. But our people can't live in fear when we've got a state. Some of you, when you write about these things, you are intimidated. You know, you are intimidated. So people just get lost. So that's where the state must come in and protect. You know, all these thugs running amok here, whether in water, electricity, or anywhere else, they must be rounded up to show that the state can protect its citizens, but also the services that are essential that must be provided to our people. People must come provide services free and fair, based on capacity, not on being, not on extorting the state and intimidating communities and all of that. That thing is sickening. We've got a lot of problems here of water, and when you go deeper, you go there, you campaign. People have been without water. There is an infrastructure program. Transformers just disappear. Transformer. People, you know, disappear. They destroy that transformer, and then they connect electricity illegally. And then who's going to suffer the consequence? Law-abiding citizens who pay tax and all of that are the ones who suffer. So that's why these things are interconnected. Law enforcement, dealing with acts of criminality and all of that, they are interconnected. Once you address the other, then it means business will thrive, legit business, against people who are just masquerading as criminals, masquerading as businessmen, but extorting, you know, the state. That's what happens here. Yeah.
Thank you. SG, the NSFAS question.
NSFAS has challenges year in and year out. Efficiency, distribution of resources. It was plagued with a lot of challenges, and those were investigated. The minister must clean up NSFAS. That NSFAS is legit. Today we're discussing budget. And if this budget were not to be passed, it will affect the very same students we're talking about. if this NSFAS, it is not there, it doesn't start now. It started right from the beginning in 1994 with TEFSA, and then it changed over time. It now NSFAS billions of rands supporting poor students. So if that money is embezzled, misused, maladministration, that's a problem. To a certain extent, some of the people who are saying increase efficiency in terms of control. I was in some of the municipalities, not only NSFAS, if I were to divert in the Free State, poor municipality, they have a rollover, money not well spent. They employ somebody there who doesn't have qualifications. Expenditure becomes a problem. If that municipality belonged to the ANC, we as the ANC must be decisive. That's why we must not play with people who are just running amok. And if we have to lose them because they happen to be close to the movement because we call them comrades, we must deal with them. That's how society is going to respect the ANC. You can't have a municipality underqualified, not performing, money's poor municipality, money's rolled over back to treasury. That is criminality. And we have now taken a decision where we have identified such anomalies and inefficiencies and all of that. We must intervene decisively. You know, Donald Trump is doing something there called Dodge. We don't want Dodge of Donald Trump. We want Dodge where we are able to intervene, even in local government, where monies are being misused by poor municipalities, are not being properly channeled. We've got our own Vulindlela here, which have done things in this government that are perfect and wonderful for our government. I mean, we're dealing at the TNPA with corporatization, which is what government has passed and agreed to 2005 and was not being effected, to enable TNPA within Transnet to be able to generate its own revenue and all of that, but through corporatization. That was not implemented. Vulindlela intervened and ensured that does actually happen. There are proposals that have been made here on concessions and all of that. President is addressing that to enable the intervention of the private sector to come to the party. Some of these things will find expression in the policy implementation and work that needs to be done. You can't say budget must not be passed because corporatization of TNPA is not being implemented. The deficiencies of policy implementation in the Department of Transport can't be a problem of the Minister of Transport, Minister of Finance and Treasury. Those issues must be implemented in government policy level. And that's what Vulindlela has been doing, opening up, ensuring that things do happen, intervene in municipalities like it has happened in eThekwini, and that will go on and on with everybody else, you know, to ensure that we address some of these challenges. This must go to NSFAS as well, because if monies allocated are not well spent, students will continue to protest with nudes or whatever you can call it. They will continue to protest. You see, I mean, you go to Cape Town, UCT, students are protesting there. You go every university beginning of the year, students are protesting there. But the protest will always be there if the system is not enough for everybody, you know, particularly those who can't afford. For all of you to become accomplished journalists, you were supported by this NSFAS and TEFSA over the years, and you became accomplished journalists. You did not come from well-off families, majority of you. You were paid for by the state to support you. And that time, there was no bursary roll out. You were taking loan from government to finish your degree, and thereafter you paid back. Now, we've killed that with this NSFAS. So that is why it is important that it must be guarded and ensure that all the money that is allocated is well spent and benefit the poor students in the different universities.
Okay, thank you very much, Comrade SG. Colleagues, we are adjourned, and we do appreciate your being here. We will have follow-up interviews upon